Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the DewatchPod Black Mirror podcast. I am your lovely host, Jorgen Smorgasbord, and I think we have a 99.8% match to have you have a good time with this episode.
Yeah, and I am Jim with a G, and I'm gonna be here with you for 36 hours. But really only for one specific activity here. One very
That's right.
nice activity.
That's right. We're gonna get down and podcast.
We're gonna go down, you might say.
Into the pod pit.
I was going for an innuendo there, but I see you took the pod pit route.
What's this episode called, Jim?
This episode is called Hang the DJ, which I actually have some history behind this one. This is how I found the song that plays at the end of this episode, and I was like, you know what? This is a good song, and it's been with me ever since.
That's fascinating, Jim.
Thank you.
I don't think it tells us a lot about the episode, though.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's a dating app episode, which is really near and dear to our hearts.
But before we tell you any more than that, do we recommend for you to see this episode?
Right, hit the countdown.
3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really liked this episode for like half of it. And then I didn't like it anymore.
Okay, I'm curious exactly where that breakpoint is, because I know you emitted some noises of consternation during it, and I was like, I can see the issues here, but I think overall I quite like this episode.
Well, let's do a very quick rundown of what happens in this episode.
So this is this is one of those Black Mirror episodes where we have take current thing and explode it into bigger things, right? Like this is very upfront the dating app episode.
Yeah, this is like a conceptually very clean episode up to a point, because it's like no, we're not looking at the social implications of this. We are just trying to like look at the thing in like with as much magnification as we possibly can and try to like think about it.
Yeah.
And then we stop doing that.
Well, before we get to that one, I suppose, the gist, I suppose, is that we have, I believe it is only known as the system. I will say, this episode, surprisingly, I forgot about this part, really hits some young adult vibes when it comes to the lingo here, because we have the system,
the hub.
Yeah, we have I believe they mentioned pairing day,
coaches,
ultimate pair, or what I forget exactly, but
stuff like that.
There's a lot of it, and I think it this was produced 2017. Like this feels like it could have made it like 2014, right? Like it just feels like it really hoovered up all of that.
Yeah, it's a lot of interesting points. But it doesn't care. Well, I guess it does sort of lean into them a bit more than I at least initially anticipated.
It has some aesthetic similarities, but I think most of it is just in the lingo.
Yeah. But to go through it like real quick, we have two people, one of whom is very attractive. The other is like sort of awkward white guy.
He just feels like he's about 2 months away from the real world of being diagnosed with chronic depression. he just has a very sad face, and I say that with love. But yeah, they are entrusting their romantic lives to the system.
That's right.
This is actually, I would say, less ominous than it sounds at first. But there's some ominousness to it.
Yeah. Basically, the way the system works, like, as we're sort of, like, given to be slowly revealed on us throughout the episode, there's, like, a walled enclosure, which actually is, like, really not focused on at all, that people are in, and they keep getting assigned partners until eventually they're being assigned the ultimate partner.
Yeah, it's a way to test out and like establish their preferences and reactions and blah blah blah. It's you're being, I guess, I don't know, what's the word for this? I guess you're being trialed and errored into finding your perfect match, your ultimate match. I think that's what it was.
Something like that.
And you are given also, I think importantly, a certain amount of time you stay with someone, which in this episode we see varies from 12 hours to 5 years.
At least.
Yeah, so it's a big one.
We're given no indication that those are like the absolute bounds, but that is kind of what we're working with.
It seems like there's a lot of like accessory things here where like they always seem to meet at like a restaurant. They don't get to pick their food. Like they also get assigned food, which is like a weird. It's the only thing.
No, it's a very like everything is taken care of. You just need to like date, and like we don't get to see any insight into people's lives outside of dating.
In fact, it barely seems like there's one. We don't see anyone working, right? Like I think the closest thing is we get like a short shot of what appears to be like a shopping mall, maybe later.
And there's like a function at one point,
right? Which is them celebrating how good the system was.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there is this thing where like they essentially meet, hang out at dinner for a bit, then get tucked off to like this cabin.
Yeah, it's like a cabin, roughly.
Like a cabin, and then
to explain to the unsuspecting listener, what is a tuk-tuk?
I don't know how you want me to define a tuk-tuk. It's just a tuk-tuk. It's like a little funny-looking car, but it's like, stupid.
And I think it has 3 wheels?
Yeah, that sounds right.
It's like golf carty, but like you see them in like, I want to say like Southeast Asia a lot, and they like have a driver, and then it's like, that's what cabs are like in like sort of dense areas, I want to say.
Yeah. And we do seem to get the impression that like you either just have like a day getaway to one of these cabins, or you get schmooked into like a full-on relationship for a while.
Yeah.
A lot of these dates, the shorter ones, do seem to just be like, I guess we just have sex and then kind of call it a day, which I think is an interesting detail. But yeah, like we spend a lot of time here, right?
Mm-hmm.
We start with the couple. The titular couple. Well, I guess it's not.
Yeah, no, like
the main couple.
There isn't that much going on here, so like we don't even need to define them because they're the only 2 characters really in this show.
They have 12 hours together. They hold hands very chastely, and then they're like, should have banged as the 12 hours run out. And then they each go into a series of unsatisfying relationships, some short, some long.
Yeah, the guy has one extremely long relationship with a Welsh woman who despises him.
Who is the star of the show. Like, I think this is where we need to go back to what we used to do of having, like, what are the best minor characters, and she's my favorite. But yeah, like, they go through this for a while, then eventually they get to meet up again. And they decide not to check how long this relationship is designated to last.
Yeah.
And we get some tension. Because they have really good chemistry.
Yeah.
Allegedly, as the cinematic language informs us.
Yeah. And one of them is very attractive, so we buy it.
You're really on that, huh?
Listen, she's beautiful.
She's very pretty. It's hard to deny that. But yeah, and they have their relationship going on for a while. Everything seems to be going
We
great.
don't know how long, actually, but, like, it doesn't super matter, because eventually, like, the guy's like, oh man, I'm super anxious about this ending any second, and I'm genuinely happy, so I'm gonna break the promise we made to each other and check the timeout timer.
At which point, bad things start happening.
Yeah, so this is a very beautiful sequence that genuinely took me out for a bit. Because initially we see like, oh yeah, it's 5 years. You've got 5 years together.
Yeah, I think also watching his reactions is really good because it's kind of like a, huh, all right.
Yeah, no, and it's like 5 years is such a beautiful number to be like, yeah, no, that's serious.
Yeah,
but
like, not permanent.
It's deeply finite.
Yeah.
and then the system starts counting down with like intermissions of recalibrating.
Yeah.
And he like has a full-on panic until he is like eventually like punched down to like 20 hours.
Yeah, and he's having this like where he's being very Scottish, I want to say, and trying to get it to stop. And he's giving some real caveman vibes in the moment, which I think followed up on in a little bit.
Yeah, and he's extremely depressed during this day, and eventually he's confronted and he's like, "I'm sorry, I looked at the time,
Yeah.
and we have like about an hour left."
Yeah, and, like, at this point she's like, "Oh, so you broke it," and he's like, "I don't know," which I really want. In the moment I was like, "What do you mean? The thing was telling you, hey, you have currently broken this."
Well, yeah,
Because
kind of.
essentially it says something like, "Oh, because only one party looked at the expiry date, we're cutting it the fuck down."
Well, yeah, it's like the system is like, well, the system essentially foresees this, though it also produces the meltdown, which, as we later find out, is very intentional. And yeah, no, like, there's a bit of an ominous intermission where he's like, "We could run away together," and there's like, suddenly everyone around them is ominous and looks like a cop. Because, dear listeners, as we will find out at the end, they are in fact in the Matrix, and there's agents. Or is there? And yeah, no, they get separated again.
Yeah, and she's very upset.
Yeah, they're both very upset.
They're both very upset, but he's kind of more like, "Oh yeah, my bad."
Yeah, he feels very guilty.
We have some more unfulfilling relationships.
Yeah, no.
Probably the funniest sex scene of the show so far, in a show with quite a few sex scenes.
Yeah, and well, so there's two. I didn't like catch exactly what was going on in his part, but her part was just like another string of like short-term hookups.
Yeah, like she really gets hit with a like full hookup, like, and we only see him having the like longest relationship. But yeah, like I think that the little spot we see here is of him having sex with a woman, and both of them are like, "Oh man, I had this great partner previously. Can I think of him? Or can I think of her?" And she goes, "Only if I think of him." And then they start having like great sex.
Yeah, no, and this is this is like one of the like more interesting parts, but unfortunately I have already been like Matrix warned, and at this point I'm like, this can't end anywhere good.
Right. So where does it end, Jorgen?
Well, both of them are informed that they have their final match, their ultimate match selected for them
On pairing day.
And-
By the director. Sorry, that was just my insert.
and this entails that they get to leave the walled enclosure. And like the system is throwing them a bone here. Where it's like, would you like to see anyone before you're like slotted in with your ultimate match?
Yeah.
And they're like, obviously this other person that I've been having this like longing for.
Yeah.
And then they run away together, and basically the Matrix sort of like shuts down around them as they run. Like they're not offered a lot of resistance here.
Yeah, there's a very strange moment where like we've been seeing these guards with tasers kind of be like,
yeah,
throughout the episode, and then she's like, "I can bend the taser." Like they really have their Matrix moment where she like puts her hand on the taser and nothing happens, and then everyone freezes.
Yeah, no, and eventually, like, as they're scaling the infinite wall, like, the world disappears behind them. The lights go out, and then, the simulation ends, and eventually they're, like, walking in nowhere. And a bunch of them are, like, also there. And,
yeah, with little numbers above their heads.
And this is when we find out that out of 1,000 simulations in 998 of them, they have escaped together, producing the final scene where both of them look at each other in like a house party or something.
Yeah, like in the real world at this point.
And get this person's at 99.8% perfect match. Which, like, there's some issues with that, right?
Please don't get into the statistics.
No. I said that was a CinemaSins thing.
Okay.
And we're not doing that. No. Because we haven't seen them as a couple.
We've seen them for a bit.
We've seen them for a bit. Like, the actual simulations thing would be like letting them grow old together, surely.
Well, I mean, I think that depends, doesn't it? I think that depends on what you're looking for out of a dating app.
But this app apparently is looking for people who would run out of the matrix together. Which, like, it's romantic, but, like, what does that actually mean?
Listen, I mean, like, I think here is where we have to... First off, I just want to highlight one little thing before we go into the heavier side. The scene where they look at each other in the house party, very uncomfortable. Like, I think they're trying to seem like they're like, oh, I like you. But I don't know, they just, like, kind of smile weirdly at each other for too long.
I think the implication is that both of them are kind of like, this is the person for me, huh?
Yeah.
Right there. Like, the implicate... Because, like, this story assumes monogamy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, like, you would look awkward, too, if you had downloaded an app on your phone that was generally known to be like, hey, we're gonna be able to predict with, like, near perfect accuracy if this person is the one.
Yeah, like the high...
In, like, both the neo and the romantic sense.
Right, like, both in the you have great chemistry together and also, like, you inspire each other to rebel against semi-dystopia.
Which, like, first of all, that would immediately be banned. We cannot have that kind of unrest in the word.
But it's also really intense, right?
Yeah, no, like, and I think that is sort of, like, that's sort of the implication we're sort of forced to wrestle with, that, like, these people are, like, given, like, insane information about, like, some rando.
I think, like, it's interesting to me, right? Because we can make the jokes about, like, oh, clearly, if this app, like, if you were looking at, like, couples and you were like, hey, we're gonna pair up two accountants whose favorite activity is looking over paperwork in their spare time, they probably wouldn't rebel. They would probably be like, you know, we love each other and we're soulmates, but also, like, you gotta follow the system, man. So, like, there's some questions there, but, like, I think that's fine as a narrative device. Like, I don't think we need to look into the specifics of that. I think this is one of those episodes that honestly feels great to just, like, get into it. Get into, like, the digging of, like, what does this say about dating? What does it say about, like, dating apps? I think, and this is a hot take, I think you could pull a little bit of a queer reading out of it. I'm
doing a surprised face.
You are doing a surprised face, Jorgen. But shall we start consuming the meat as the meat eaters we both are?
Hey dude, I'm gonna spend my portion of theorizing and counterfactuals.
Okay. Well, now I feel like I'm being opposed here. Now I feel like the barricades are being raised already.
Well, no, I mean, I think there's a lot on this episode, unfortunately.
So this was made in 2017, which I was actually surprised by. I thought it was made earlier, but that's me having a faulty memory. But I also think it's quite an interesting, because they do make some commentary on, like, oh man, I wonder what life was like before the system. And they're like, well, you'd have to find each other, like, on your own, and you'd have to break up, like, intentionally. You'd have to make those decisions. And I think this is very interesting, because, like, we've both been hanging on the dating side of things lately. Yeah. And I think there is, like, an interesting little reflection of that idea, because, like, if you're hanging out at, like, I don't know, a more natural location, like if you're hanging out in, I don't know, like you're going to parties with your friends or stuff like that, you know, there's a very clear difference to that between that and conversing on a dating app. Because on a dating app, you are both immediately evaluating each other, right? Like, you're like, the ideal here, like what you're looking for, like whether it's a hookup or like a relationship or whatever, right? Like, you are starting that conversation with, like, hey, like, we're gonna be chill, but, like, also, like, clearly we're both looking to do something with this, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is, like, an interesting thing that this takes up, right? Is the idea that, like, you are pushed into these situations, and it's a lot heavier in the episode, but still, it gives you the, like, hey, like, this app says we're very compatible, and, like we're just being pushed into meeting. And, like, I think I don't know, like, don't you think there's something interesting there to analyze?
Yeah, no, I mean, you have actually, glommed onto sort of the same thing that I'm interested in. Because my objection is, like, the whole Matrix part, right? I think that...
Yeah, I know.
I think that does... So, basically, like, for, like, half the episode, I was like, oh, like, I was sort of, like, trying to, like, figure out what it's about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, hold on, why is it, like, letting them know the time? Surely, like, if you want to, like, assess someone's, like, capacity to be in a relationship or, like, someone's, like, behavior in a relationship, what you want to know from them is, like, what they do if they're actually committed. So, like, giving them, like, don't worry, this one isn't for real, is a bit strange, right? So, like, so the timer sort of, like, took me a bit off guard. But, like, the implication seems to be, like, well, you know, that's just part of the process, right? Those people are, to choose some very crude language here, like, for the sake of this story and for the sake of the system, like NPCs, right? Like, they're, like, you are all pawns until you find the one, at which point you get to escape the Matrix through love.
It does have a very romantic setup.
Yeah, and, like, what I sort of intermittently, like, ended up settling on as my thesis for what this episode is about is wrestling, and, like, the point when I was, like, really, like, zeroing in on this is when he, like, checks the time and it goes down. And I was like, oh, is this episode about wrestling with how much we can outsource to technology? Right?
I think there's a lot of that. I think there's... Because, like, I was thinking about the timer as essentially, like... If we're really dumbing it down a little bit, it's the timer concept is just a way to say, live in the moment, man. And I think it kind of connects to the idea of, like, having the designated, like, you're going to be together for this amount of time, I think is theoretically, like, similar at the very least to, like, the way you on a dating app might be like, oh, I'm interested in hookups. I'm interested in this type of relationship. And knowing that ahead of time before you've actually met the person. Which is, I think, at least analogous to sort of putting, like, that expiration date on the relationship. Yeah. And I think, like, that is, like, because I do think... So I don't like the Matrix twist either. Yeah. And I think one of the really unfortunate ways, right, is, like, the typical love story, and I think this qualifies, is the idea that, like, there are these two people, they're soulmates, no one else matters. And, like, that last part, I think, is usually not brought out that much. It's not said loudly. Here it is quite said lightly with the idea that, like, everyone else is an NPC, right?
Well, we're not, like, super explicitly told that, but, like, the system shutting down when they
everyone
leave.
Freezing. I think it is pretty in your face. And, like, I think that's sad. Because one of the most interesting parts, I think, is genuinely that admittedly funny sex scene where, like, this other woman is talking about, like, how she lost the person she thought was the most, like...
She leaves an impression, like almost no one else leaves an impression.
Yeah, like, and she's like, there's this moment of, like, real sadness on her face. Like, I think it's actually remarkably well acted, too.
Yeah, and it's, like, this sort of strange connection and, like, shared grief.
Yeah, and I think this is, like, a really interesting thing, because I think if we had a bit more empathy, I think you could really bring this out. Because I think what struck me, right, is that, like, we see these other people, and we see two variants. We see the two long-term partners that each of them has, who are annoying. One of them is openly, like, hostile and kind of mean, just straight up mean, I guess. And the other is mildly annoying and a bit superficial, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's all the character they get.
He's a fuckboy.
He's kind of a fuckboy. Yeah. But, like, he's kind of like the Hispanic lover fuckboy. Like, it's a different type of fuckboy.
I suppose.
But I think that's, like, a really interesting thing, right? Is the idea that, like, these are people too. Because I think my interpretation of the timer, in a way, is that it offers people a convenient way out. Like, we see when the timer expires, they go, all right, see ya, and then they just immediately leave.
Yeah, no, I think what really gets me about the twist is that it like abandons an idea that the episode previously is interested in, right? Because like the implication seems to be like, or at least the implication I read into it immediately is like, well, you have to like, the system has to get to know you, but you also like grow in relationships, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, so the system, like let's just like take away the matrix. Let's take the system as like, no, this is real. Right? Like the thought there would be like, okay, like this is a like extremely challenging problem. So you have some inaccuracy. You can't do like proper simulation and stuff. Right? Like the system is just like doing machine learning or whatever, and it's trying to be like, okay, how do I arrange all these pieces that are like changing to like produce the maximum amount of like extremely happy couples?
Yeah, I was also going to say, just like on the timer point, like the fact that it offers this very convenient way to avoid the actual emotional connection of something that is painful, a breakup. I think there is an analogy here to like the way dating apps promote ghosting, right?
Yeah.
Like that to me struck me as like a genuine like interesting thing, right? Because like that is a genuine change, right? Like, sure, I don't know what it was like dating in the like 1921 in the US or whatever, but like, sure, I'm sure you could find ways to just be like, oh, I'm just gonna move out of town. But for the most part, like, I think that analogy of like the ghosting and like the just being able to like jump out of a relationship without having to do that emotional confrontation, like that is, I think, like a big part of learning from real relationships.
Yeah, and
that
like
is here removed.
you gotta be able to still like confront Billie Jean working at the saloon after you part ways, and they don't do that here.
Yeah. And like I don't know, I think that there is like an interesting part there, genuinely, of like what happens when you remove that. And we do kind of get the consequences in a way, right? Like, because Amy, who we have not mentioned so far, the female, I think is like all we're like at this point. The way it's a little bit dehumanizing, but I think that's kind of what the episode gives off in a way.
Yeah.
The woman of the couple gets these like talks about how she's kind of like dissociates because she has this like series of flings, which like it's a bit slut shaming maybe at the core of it, but like, you know, she gets it.
Well, it's not what she's looking for, and yet she's sort of thrust into it.
Yeah, great verb to use there, by the way. But like, I think it's like an interesting thing talking about how like because she knows they're so short, she like just doesn't care about them. She attaches no value to it, and seemingly doesn't super enjoy it either.
No,
but I think also like a part of that is just having the like removing that opportunity, I suppose, for emotional learning.
Yeah, and like one of the like emblematic shots of this episode is like the whatever sort of current assigned partner is like sleeping, and one of our leads is like lying awake. The guy more than the woman, but like, and he's got fucking insomnia over here. But like,
there's so many shots of him lying awake, looking at his sleeping partner,
or just at the ceiling.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, like, and I was like, okay, like, how, I was hoping that it would be just like the most sincere conceivable engagement with like, we're trying to outsource the maximum amount of work from like becoming happy in a relationship, and like, is this, and we're trying to imagine that system. And maybe I was like, oh, maybe this is the like 0.02% for whom it, like the amount of outsourcing like breaks something or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I was like really interested in engaging with the idea, like where does the system go, right? Like how does it like produce these things? And you know, like it's sort of like, does he like, oh yeah, no, maybe this is the one. I guess we are later given to understand that them being assigned to each other again actually can't be like the ultimate match.
I don't know
Because
if
the
that's...
ultimate match is like announced as such, right?
Right.
So them being reassigned, it's just like, yeah, no, have another go, for a limited time. And but we don't know that at this time. I don't think.
I'm unsure. I think that's ambiguous to me.
Yeah. No, but like when they are given the ultimate match, the app is like, you're gonna meet your ultimate match tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
And this is not that. So they both know that this is impermanent. So, oh shit, I've lost my train of thought, unfortunately.
That's okay. I feel like it is... Can I hit you with my little queer reading?
Please.
Because I think I'm pushing it. I'll be very honest about that part. But I think
that's
there's...
what we're all about.
Yeah, like, I think, I don't know, I think there's something interesting to look into this. First of all, confirmed, the hot lady is bisexual, because we see
But
one
like
shot.
only a little.
Only a little. But listen, I empathize with her, that is kind of what happens. I think it's like an interesting thing to look into, because like, apart from dating apps, the other real term, like real world analogy, right, is assigned marriages, or like assigned relationships, matchmaking, etc., etc.
Though that doesn't have any like practice section.
What do you mean?
Like any section where you're like, okay, date all these people for practice until we assign you a real one.
Yeah.
Which is like an interesting difference.
But I think like there's an interesting part where like it would be a little bit ham-fisted, I think, to use this as a queer allegory, but there's the idea of like you have a system, the system again, who assigns you these partners to like figure out, even if it's unfulfilling, and then the way you get around that is by picking someone you actually like and getting out of the system, right? Like rebelling against what you're expected here. Because I do think, like, also, as you say, that like there is only the monogamy here, right? Like I think,
Fellas, is loving your partner earnestly gay?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there's an idea of like escape, queer in the broader sense, okay? About escaping from what your society has dictated love and relationships should be like. Because as you say, it is strictly monogamous. This was 2017. They hadn't invented polyamory yet. And it's also like, it's almost exclusively cishet, right? Like there's one shot of a woman in underwear.
That is so 2017.
Yeah. That's like, Charlie Brooker was real. Oh yeah, we should look at it. Is just written by Charlie Brooker. This feels like a Charlie Brooker episode. But yeah, like I don't know. Like I do think there's an interesting thing there to be like, yeah, like you can trust the system and be like, oh yeah, like eventually I will be happy with this figuring something out for me, or breaking free and like doing your own thing and picking someone like of your own volition, like. That doesn't have to be queer, for sure. Like, that can be applied in general. Like, it is, on some level, reminiscent of, like, romantic tropes going back to the dawn of fucking humanity. But, like, I don't know. Like, I think there is something there to look at. Like, I think like, it's a very sterile environment, and then they go, let's hold hands and run off into the hills.
Like, I like it. Like, I personally, like, genuinely buy their chemistry. Like, aside from, like, the horrendous opening chat.
You did seem to have physical pain going on at the earliest part.
Oh, yeah, no, it's like, oh, yeah, no, they're both so awkward, and yet it's maybe clicking.
I think this is also a Charlie Brookerism. Like, I think when he wants to do awkward chemistry, like, they have chemistry, but they're awkward. He goes way too hard on the awkward and not enough on the chemistry.
I would pay good money to see, like, Charlie Brooker, like, secretly recorded on a successful date. Like, is he married?
Let's not go into that right now. I think that's digging too far. I would pay money to go on a date with Charlie Brooker. I would love
Celebrity date auctions are a thing.
That's true. Do you think if we get this podcast to like 1 million views, like we can be like, hey, Charlie Brooker?
No, I know we booked you for a podcast appearance. We're just recording in this your beautiful restaurant. And we saw you across the room and really liked your vibe.
That's terrible. I hate that. But yeah, like, I don't know. I think the thing about this episode that makes me the saddest, honestly, isn't the ending itself. I think it is the, like, lack of empathy for the other people. Because, like, that, I think that is a part of it, right? Like, we've both been on dating apps.
Yeah.
If you've had a bad date, or if you had someone who's bad at texting, it's very easy to just unmatch them, or block them, or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's very tempting. But I also think, like, when that happens to you, it just kind of sucks, right? Like, you're like, oh, like, I thought I had something, like, some fun chats going with this person, and then just one day they stop responding, like, or they don't...
I've never been ghosted.
Really?
No, I mean, I have less general data than you, so, you know.
But yeah, you do have the example of someone not reading a very important part of your profile, so...
Alas.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, like... I think that's, like, definitely, like, one part of it. And I think there is, like, an interesting reading where, like, oh, yeah, no, the world disappearing is actually just, like, them being loaded into the end stage, and the other people are just their own simulations.
That could be an interesting one, yeah.
Like, that's pure, like, cope. But it's, like...
That's fan fiction, right? Like this is a very fan fiction-y sort of thing, I think.
Like, I mean, fundamentally, like... It's probably less computationally expensive. Like that. Like
yeah, you're only rendering the world once, or fewer times at the very least.
Yeah, you're cutting down on instances dramatically.
Yeah,
you just have to cover up this escapes well.
I suppose. Yeah,
you know, like
I mean, you can branch that at a later date, right?
Yeah, no,
when they have the rebellion.
Yeah, you know, like once you enter the final restaurant, everyone is NPCs. Before that, everyone's real.
But yeah, like I think it is a really sad thing that they like. The final message is like, actually, it's fine. Everyone, like, apart from you and your loved one, singular, doesn't matter. Ignore them.
Yeah, no, like, So we had, like, this whole bit at the end of Joan is Awful, when Joan smashes the big computer.
Right, and kills untold eons of life.
Just, like, an unclear but massive amount of people. Simulated people are just evaporated, and we're not supposed to care about that in Joan is Awful. I'm not clear on whether we're supposed to care in this episode.
I don't think we are, because, like, again, I don't think the one empathetic woman isn't meant to be empathetic in that sense. I think it is more meant to be a mirror for man's, like, sadness and grief over his own loss.
I think it's just supposed to be a fun quip.
Yeah, also that.
But yeah, no, like, I don't know, like, fundamentally, like, what I'm trying to, like, wrap my head around is, like, what does the, like, Matrix twist actually add?
It makes, like, Charlie Brooker happy.
If we're not supposed to care about everyone else evaporating, which, like, I'm willing to buy onto that, there is no meaning left in the episode, and I don't... Are we supposed to, like, care about the people themselves? Like, these 1,000 simulated, or these 998 simulated happy couples evaporating? Are we supposed to care about that? Like, I'm not sure.
So, but yeah, like, Jürgen, I don't think... It's probably going to sound a bit smug of me. I don't think this was an ending you were meant to think about for more than... 5 seconds. You're gonna be like, "Aw, they're such rebels together. They must make a great couple." And that's it. Like, genuinely, I think that's where we're at. And like, cause I am. It's a little bad when I've been doing the good faith reading of this episode, which requires ignoring the last 2 minutes of the episode.
Yeah.
The actual ending. Because this is one of those twist endings that just takes away meaning, I think. Because, like, I don't know. Like, I think there's maybe something to be said. Like, because it's ironic, right? Like, you can say it's ironic that, like, yeah, like they rebel against the system, which is a hyper dating app, but actually they're just part of a bigger dating app. But like,
Yeah, no, we do not get to like spend any fucking time with the people that all of this was in service of.
Yeah.
Which like really just like I guess everyone we knew all episode is dead. Right?
Right. I mean, there's like, this is what we're always going to get into with Black Mirror, right? Where it's like, it's a separate substantiation.
Yeah, no, and everyone we care about has disappeared from the story. And it's like, who are these two people? Like, are they real? Are they like not in the simulation?
They're very awkward smilers. That's the main trait I think we know from
are these the people we've seen in the app? Like, have the people in the app changed to like love each other? Like, it's very strange. And yeah, no, so if you'll permit, I would like to try to think about like if this episode just like stuck to its guns.
Yeah,
like,
I'll permit.
Where would we go?
That's a really interesting question, right? Because the good part of the episode, in my opinion at the very least, ends when they're climbing over the hyper wall. And
so for me, it like
okay.
The first time cracks really show is when we get the big like everyone's agent there in the Matrix, like sort of like ominous zoom around. But a little bit before that, actually, like we see the thing that actually breaks like this reading for me, which is the like coach phone essentially saying, no, the time cannot go up, it can only go down. Right? That is like the first time we see that the system is actively hostile to connection.
Yeah, it also feels quite sudden because this is the only time we've even been notified that it can change.
Yeah, and we like, until this point, we are not given any like substantive indication that the system is hostile. That we are only given like the system's, it's a bit cold at times because it's like a computer voice.
Yeah.
And they hadn't invented like computers being horny for you yet. But like,
oh god, yeah, this would be a very different episode, wouldn't it? With like the replicas or whatever they're called, AI girlfriends.
But oh god, next season is going to be interesting. But yeah, no, like until this point, the system is just straight up like trying to help, and like he fucks up, right? He's like he like knocks down the number, and like at some point it would have been interesting to have like what I would have maybe like expected or liked for the next scene is for him to be like, hey, I do genuinely like care about you. I fucked up because I care about you. And the system's like, okay, so here's the secret, carve out. Or like maybe because you broke the system, like I cannot like know anything about you anymore. Like you can leave together, but like we don't have the data or something. But maybe that.
I think one of the interesting things, right? Because like my biggest issue with the episode is still the empathy problem of like relating to the other people who are not actually just NPCs in your dating journey, but real people with real lives and such, who are on their own journeys. But I was thinking like, I think I probably got a little bit excited by conceptually is the idea of him looking at like their expiration date and having that information and living with it. Because like they essentially have already kind of rebelled against the system by not looking at the expiration date, right? Like that is the first rebellion they're doing together. And him betraying that in a way that you could argue, like in a lowercase sense, gives him power that she doesn't have in this situation. And this is like a real thing, right? Like we have this weird, in like modern dating, I guess, we have this weird like glut of information that we can look into, right? Like, if I'm on a date with someone, I could look up and be like, oh, I see you like metal. Let's talk about that. but that also kind of betrays our innate desire for romance and like sex, for that matter, like sexual attraction, to be natural, naturalistic at the very least. So I think that's like an interesting thing you could have actually examined. Like, is there more information to be gained that he could take advantage of that she wouldn't, or maybe she would go on her own? Like, I think that's a more interesting way to analyze this, right? Because I think, like, if I'm putting like a little bit of my like look on dating on the table here, I think dating apps have issues.
Yeah.
I think that would be harder to say, and like it can feel very stilted, and it's certainly a unique situation, but I don't think they're that dissimilar to like, oh, going to like a singles event or whatever. Like, yeah, you have access to more information than you would otherwise, but you can still like find cool people and like connect outside of just the app, right? So like I think in a way you could probably make an interesting story of interweaving like her like wanting to rebel and him still wanting to like have access to the security that the app gives him, right? Like I think there are interesting themes to go with there. I don't know how it would have ended, because I think this requires snaking off the path much earlier. But I think it's an interesting thought, right? Like, and I think it kind of goes into your suggestion there of like the app suddenly not knowing what to do.
Yeah. No. I guess while we were like exploring like interesting counterfactuals, another one that like I'm fine with this episode not going into, but like if you're actually like doing this calculus, like what are you maximizing for?
Right.
Because like you have like a finite amount of people and you need to match all of them. Like, do you match so for that like the average is the highest? Do you like what do you maximize? Do you like eat a few people being alone for like most people being really happy? Like there's a lot to dig into here, right? Where it's like, oh no. These people are actually like perfect for each other. However, like the people they end up maybe being chosen to be with, like, will be much happier with them than with anyone else. So like despite them having like this connection, like it's not best for like the total score. Like that would have been also an interesting problem to look into.
Well, I think it also like it ties into the idea of like, what are they actually trying to do? Like, is this meant to be relationship until the death? Is it meant to like maximize lifetime happiness, however long the relationship is?
And
like, it's
I
a lot of interesting
suppose
questions.
in that way, like the ending does again make sense, because like I don't think these questions like it's an escape into hyperbole again, like something that Black Mirror I guess likes to do, right? It's like, oh, like these are not like easily answerable questions, nor is it answerable questions. Like if you answer them, you're staking out a fucking position, right?
Yeah.
And instead of that, we're just going like, oh yeah, no, like the young adult novel True Love is Real, except we're also Black Mirror, so in fact you have been in service of these two people in the meat world, hopefully getting together, but because it's Black Mirror, we don't actually get to see how that shapes.
It does feel like the ending isn't just very well thought out, but like I don't know. Like I think because the ending is so short, I'm more okay with just ignoring it than most Black Mirror episodes, which is, you know, that's not good practice, but it is what I'm going to do, and it's going to make me happier. But yeah, like I think I don't know, there's so much stuff here. Like, I'll be honest, I like the episode, and maybe that's just because I'm personally very sappy, and like it does hit the notes. Like I think if you just took it as a story about like just a romance in the trashy sense of the word romance, it does its job quite well, I would say. For the most part.
Yeah.
Apart from the intro.
Yeah, the intro stumbles a bit. Like it, and I think like it is very interesting that it just like sort of plays into like romance tropes, right? It's like, oh yeah, you know, like guess what?
True love.
You've had a string of like bad relationships, but you're drawn back to each other, right?
True, yeah.
And like like that was like an interesting observation. Like, oh, the app is clearly like playing with that. Like,
Yeah.
what does that mean, right?
Like, what extra info does it give?
Yeah, and like what because the app is like like in like one of many interpretations, like the app is like telling a story to these people, right? About like who they are and who they'll end up with, and like it is like going through like it is going through arranged beats of the romantic narrative, and I was sort of reading that as, oh yeah, no, like this is the system setting them up to be like extremely into each other, which it is, just not quite in the
Yeah,
way.
and they kind of even discussed that idea in the episode, I would say, a little bit. Like, the
Yeah.
idea of it, like, kind of forming them. Like, the idea of love less as, like, oh, this innate transcendental thing, and more as, like, a thing that happens because of factors. You know?
And I think this sort of creates another counterfactual, because like, or I guess this is just like a weird lingering question, because like these two people that we see in the story have been like forged as an item, like in the fires of great adversity, right?
Right.
And these two people who are meeting like at a house party, like how are they gonna get that, you know?
I mean, I think the funny answer to that is that it implies that a dating app is gonna find a way to get them to go through the narrative arcs of like running away together. Like, the dating app is somehow gonna get them to, like, I don't know, like get in league with the mafia or something, and then they have to run away from their town together. Like, I don't know. I think there's an interesting.
But yeah, no, like there's like an interesting layer about just like the artificiality of these narratives that is sort of like being like winked at but never quite like drawn to the forefront entirely.
It could have been something to analyze for sure if they went further with that, but I don't think they're particularly interested in it.
But yeah, no, like it's a tool to make like the simulation a thing.
Yeah. I think it's also like, I don't know, like there is something to just the idea of like I'd like them to have delved into more about like what makes, like, why their relationships are being set up, because the idea of it is like, oh, it's just trial and error. Like, I think I'd like to know, like, oh, but why did they trial and error with this person? Because like one of the things that always strikes me about dating apps, right, is the idea that like, oh, you can have like the exact same interests, the exact same values, the exact same like answers to the OkCupid questions or whatever, and it says nothing about like how you and that person are going to work together.
I mean, like, to be like a bit like pragmatic about the episode for a second, like I think the episode is implying that these 1,000 simulations are running for everyone at that party.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not disputing that. It's, I mean, like in the system, like in the first layer we're looking at here, like why, for example, why is man paired with mean Welsh woman when they clearly hate each other? Like, is there something to that, or is it just like, hey, we're gonna test how you do in a shitty relationship? Like, what happens with you?
I mean, like the sheer quantity sort of implies that like, no, like it's just like random obstacles.
Yeah, I suppose, but it would have been an interesting thing to look into a bit more.
I mean, sort of what speaks against that, I guess, is like the pure narrativizing of it, like for the two of them.
For sure.
Because like if you would actually be trying to see if they escape under any circumstances, surely you would be trying to keep them apart a bit harder.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be like, oh yeah, no, she's over there. Oh no, she's being yanked away. Like, you know, it's like the system is clearly rooting for them, like on some level.
Oh yeah. They're setting up the romantic story like as part of its designated path. But like I'm curious, Jorgen. How do you feel now? Because you were unsure about whether to recommend this at the start.
I don't know. It's kind of a wash. Like,
okay.
Like the ending just like so thoroughly pulls away from any ambition to say anything that it's like hard to pull anything even from the interesting threads that it was using.
So do you think the ending completely ruined it for you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because you were saying earlier that like the part where you started to break was when they were doing the everyone is a cop.
Like, that's when I knew I was going somewhere bad.
Right.
But I was like, so, like, the pieces were still neat. Until I was like, oh, yeah, no, that's prison.
I want to propose a potential public good here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I want to propose that when a Black Mirror season is highlighted, Charlie Brooker gets like 2 sticks, and the sticks represent him getting to do a twist ending. And he only gets to use them on 2 out of 6 episodes. So he has to actually think when he deploys them.
Maybe they've done that, and that's why he's cut down the episode count. Maybe they tried that for season 5, and he was like, yeah, no, I can work with 2 twist endings. A hard face forming.
That's him establishing his plan to escape the system. But like I don't know.
Maybe they gave him 3 sticks for season 5. And he was like, yeah, no, I guess I can limit myself to 3 twist endings.
I don't know, like Shyamalan is too far away for me to really have an emotional connection to that joke anymore. But man, Charlie like someone just needs to slap him a little bit when he starts thinking about it, because like I do agree with you, like this would have just been better. Like would it have been more expected, I guess? Like would it have been more typical young adult stuff going on? Sure, that's fine. Like just make a good...
I know, I think at the end of the day, like this is an escape. This is an escape from having to say all that much. Right, like he's just like depicting some things through like a lens, and then he's like, alright, I don't want to say anything though, so I'm gonna pull the rug.
Maybe this is something I should say for like a season recap. Doesn't that happen way too much in the show?
Yeah.
Yeah. What a way to end today's episode, huh?
Yeah, no, I... So...
Yeah.
No, to reach ahead a little bit for the season recap, though, I think we can maybe formulate a theory that Black Mirror doesn't have a quality curve. It just breaks you over time as you start to see what it's doing more and more.
I feel like over time with this podcast, we're getting less and less excited to point out the bad stuff, because we just kind of expect it at this point, the little foibles they set up. I also just, I want to say one thing. This would also be a season recap thing, but cheating. It doesn't technically happen in this episode, despite ample ground for it.
But there is some vibes there, but I think...
There's some spiritual cheating.
Yeah, well...
With the, you know...
They just have a good time at the buffet for a bit, and she really steps on his foot.
That's true, actually, yeah. Oh,
and the guy goes like, oh man, she's really stepping on that guy's foot. I need to intervene because there's clearly a tension forming a bond.
Okay, well, let's see if we can round this off at the hour mark, because next time we have Metalhead, which is 41 minutes, so I think that's about Macy Day length.
It's not a good precedent.
This episode is a little bit infamous as well, from what I remember, and I'm gonna close the Wikipedia page so you do not have any further warning. Everyone who's watched Black Mirror has some inkling of what lies ahead. Jorgen is looking pained and in anticipation of something bad happening too.
Yeah, we have consigned ourselves to this.
Yeah, I mean, like, we're like halfway through. We're coming up on the halfway point.
Something like that. Yeah.
I'm enjoying it. Are you enjoying it, Jorgen?
Most of it.
What parts are you not enjoying?
Large segments of certain episodes.
Would you say the parts that's slow and not a lot happens?
Yeah, no, like, this episode was like, I don't know, I was sort of worried that it was slow rolling and set up too much, but honestly, like, in the end, I missed the setup.
Okay, that's fair. So next time, we'll be going through Metalhead, and let's see what happens to those particular preferences of yours.
Yeah. See you around, listeners.
See you around, listeners.